Today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful tools any of us have, asking a really good question. We're going to dive into a real high school business class to see how a great teacher uses questions to turn passive listening into active understanding. It's pretty cool stuff.
I mean, think about it for a second. What really is the difference between just hearing something and actually getting it, you know? We're flooded with information 24/7, but how much of it really sticks? How do you go from just hearing words to really, truly understanding?
Well, a huge part of the answer comes down to the art of questioning. And that's what we're going to break down today. We're going to analyze a business lesson on SWOT analysis, taught by Wes Warner, and you'll see exactly how a master teacher uses questions to build understanding, literally moment by moment.
All right, first up, let's talk about the wins. What did this teacher do to make sure every single student was locked in, mentally in the room and ready to go? It's all about creating a classroom where engagement isn't the exception, it's the norm.
So, the first tool in his belt is a classic you might have heard of, cold calling. And look, this isn't about putting kids on the spot to catch them out, not at all. It's a method where the teacher asks a question directly to a student, and in doing so, sets the expectation that everyone needs to be ready to contribute.
And here's what that sounds like in the wild. At about the 3:41 mark, the teacher just kicks things off with this perfect, low-stakes cold call. It's just a simple, direct question to check for basic understanding and get the ball rolling. So why does this work so well? Well, that one simple move just sends ripples through the whole classroom. It instantly sets a tone of engagement. It makes every student accountable for the material. You can't just tune out. And for the teacher, it gives them instant data on who's getting it and who isn't. But maybe most importantly, it just normalizes participation for everybody. It's not just for the kids who always raise their hands.
Okay, so cold calling gets everyone in the game. That's a huge win. But how do you go from just recalling facts to, really thinking? How do you get to that deeper analytical level? Well, that brings us to our next set of techniques for deepening the whole discussion.
And this is where something called elaboration techniques come into play. These are the specific moves a teacher can make to prompt a student to go further, to add more detail, give an example, and really flesh out what they're thinking. The goal here is to turn a correct answer into a rich answer.
Here's a fantastic example of this. At 7:26, a student named Eddie gives a solid, correct answer. He says, local credibility. Now, the teacher could have just said, great, thanks, Eddie, and moved on. But he doesn't. He immediately pushes for more. He says, give me an example. That little prompt forces Eddie and everyone else listening to connect this abstract idea to a real-world situation. It's a game changer.
All right, another really cool tool is the bounced question. This is where the teacher kind of shifts their role from being the judge to being more of a facilitator. Instead of saying right or wrong, they take a student's answer and they just bounce it to another student to add on or maybe even challenge it. And what this does is create a real conversation between the students themselves. It follows this really simple but powerful pattern: initiate, respond, and follow up. So the teacher initiates with a question, a student responds, but here's the magic step, the follow-up, where another student gets brought into the conversation. This completely changes the dynamic. It's no longer just teacher-student. It becomes a real group discussion.
And check this out. This is a brilliant illustration of the technique in action. At 11:39, a student, Luca, is kind of struggling to define the word implication. Instead of just feeding him the answer, the teacher masterfully bounces the question over to another student, Mo. Think about what that does. It supports Luca without making him feel bad, and it empowers Mo to step up and be the teacher in that moment. That's how you build a truly collaborative classroom.
Okay, so the techniques we've just seen are really, really strong, no doubt about it. But what's the difference between good questioning and great questioning? Let's explore how we could take these already powerful methods and just kick them up a notch to get even more out of the learning.
One way to do that is with an advanced technique called second drafting. Now, this isn't about fixing a wrong answer. This is about taking a perfectly correct answer and challenging the whole class to make it even better, to make it clearer, more precise, maybe a little more academic. It's all about refining ideas together.
So let's look at a couple of moments where a good move could have been made even better. First, at the 16:40 mark, the teacher does a great job pushing a student, Jack, for more precision. That's the good. But the next level move, instead of just working with Jack, he could have bounced that refinement task to another student. That way, it becomes a collaborative effort. See the difference? Now for the second one. Remember when the teacher paused after Eddie's answer? That pause time was super effective. That's good. But better? He could have layered in what's called an inverted question. Basically, you flip a statement into a question. So instead of just pausing, he could have jumped in and said, okay, we know local credibility is a strength, but why? What makes it so critical in Shenzhen? That simple flip pushes the whole class from thinking about the what to wrestling with the why.
Whew. Okay, we have broken down a ton of great stuff here. So what are the key takeaways? Let's put it all together into a practical toolbox. And seriously, you can use these tools whether you're in a classroom, a boardroom, or even just talking with your family at the dinner table.
So here's your kit. You've got cold calling to make sure everyone's engaged and accountable from the start. You've got elaboration techniques to push past those simple surface-level answers. You've got pause time to give people a second to really think. You've got bounce questions to get a real student-driven dialogue going. And then you have second drafting to help the group refine their ideas together. The point is, when you put these all together, you can transform a simple Q&A into a seriously powerful engine for building understanding.
Because at the end of the day, the questions we ask, they literally create our world. They shape our conversations, the knowledge we build, even the relationships we have. They really are the engine of understanding. So the only question left is, what will you ask next?